right. Welcome, everyone. I see people trickling in now. I'm Donte Hunt from the BEDC. I'm the director for the Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprise Unit. And I think this is an absolutely amazing webinar. But mind you, we always put on amazing webinars. So, in any rate, let's dive in. We're talking about resilient minds, thriving businesses, or business stress. Working too hard affects your health and your business, the success of your business. So this is a very, very important topic, and we have very, very amazing, awesome individuals here today, professionals in the field that's going to help you navigate through stress, all the stuff that can affect your performance and more in your business and your success in your business, but also your health. So, without further ado, you see the names on the screen. We've got Dr. Adriene Berkeley, or is it Berkeley?
Berkeley.
Berkeley. I knew I would get it wrong. All right, so she's from SciNu, which offers services for children, teens, adults, and older adults to support emotional and psychological cognitive wellness. Then we have Dayla Burgess from Teleconnect. Teleconnect connects individuals with relevant mental health resources, empowering them to make informed choices for their emotional well-being, families, and relationships. And then we've got Fitzgerald Williams from MASC, MASC, offers support to men of all ages in embracing the best version of themselves. It advocates a contemporary view of masculinity that challenges outdated, harmful notions. By providing a safe, confidential space for sharing and transformation, MASC enables men to develop emotional literacy and relationship skills, aiding overall success. So as you can see, we've got a dream team in the house. So without further ado, I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to throw it out there. Anybody pick it up? All right. Okay. This is how important is it for entrepreneurs to build resilience? And what practices or tools do you recommend for strengthening mental resilience in the face of business challenges? Let me put it another way. I got a whole bunch of stuff to do, and it's only 24 hours in a day, and I need 39 hours. And my children are driving me nuts, and I'm about to drive overboard.
Well, I can take a stab at that, Mr. Hunt. Thank you. I think that from my experience and from working with entrepreneurs and being surrounded by them recently as well, it seems like entrepreneurship is a constant relationship with resiliency. And a really simple equation that I use with the clients that I work with is an adversity, any type of adverse experience plus a positive outcome equals resiliency. So when we're engaged in entrepreneurship, we're constantly problem solving, figuring out creative ways to get things done, and then managing your personal life. So what I would really say is find ways, simple ways to move the needle forward every day. It doesn't have to be grandiose, it doesn't have to be grand. Find a way, a balance to move that needle forward that works for your business without completely depleting your personal resources and not being able to finish the finish line, come to the finish line. So, uh, again, the equation that I like to use is any adverse experience. And I'm sure that everyone on this call, Mr. Williams, Dr. Berkeley, she can probably speak to an adverse experience in working with people starting your own business. Through that journey, there's going to be some lesson that can work as a positive outcome. You're going to pick up something about that adverse experience. And that's actually how we build resiliency, by proving to ourselves that we can work through that difficult situation and find some type of silver lining at the end. And it also helps inform the next problem that appears in your journey with entrepreneurship. You're going to get some tools and hints in that murky water that you had to get through, right? That's going to inform your next experience. So that's really resiliency for me. And also what a lot of folks that are entrepreneurs, who are entrepreneurs in our island, also talk about. Like, it's not an easy journey. You're the person who figures it out all the time, but there are lots of lessons and also rewards to find along the way, and that's how we build resiliency.
And I completely agree with everything that you said, Dayla. I'd also add to that that we have to consider sometimes that just being human in and of ourselves, we are going to have stuff that pile up on us, and we have to kind of create some emotional latitude within our bag per se. And so that starts with recognizing ourselves and understanding what our emotional limitations are and begin to incorporate things in our daily lives that help us to unpack some of that. Because in unpacking that, it allows you to be able to take on more stuff. Consider a suitcase, for example. If you're going away and you never unpack it, you just continue to put items in there that you purchase. You're going to be overweight, you're going to need another bag, etc. Unfortunately, we don't have another emotional bag that we have at our disposal. So we have to continually purge what we have and unpack those emotions that we have so that we don't feel overwhelmed. And in the process of that, also, we're building resilience.
Yeah. So resilience. So for me, I'm thinking, you know, I just, I need to go to the spa and everything is okay. Get a little pedicure, and then I'm back in business. But it sounds like that's just superficial. It is good to do that. It is definitely good to do that. I'm sure. I mean, it helps me sometimes. But am I just scratching the surface? Am I truly making space um, and purging by going to the spa, or do I need something more? What is that? What is that more that these entrepreneurs need outside of doing these very pleasurable things?
Sometimes I think when we think about, so essentially coping, like going to the spa, we
Mhm.
view it in a glitter way. Like, let's go to the spa and let's have a day off or something like that. Sometimes building that resilience or coping has to do things that we don't want to do. So particularly for entrepreneurs, that's asking for help or taking a step away, or not being so fully overindulge in the business, if that makes sense. Sometimes it's doing the things that we actually don't want to do that's really important. It's easy to say, let's go to the spa, let's go chat with a friend, but sometimes it means doing the things that we are actually trying to avoid. Having that step back helps us to build the coping skills to be able to be resilient and to survive the journey of entrepreneurship, because it's not easy, and it's having a community as well, like what you are providing, is so key to that as well. It's again having a group who understands what you're going through and what it's like
Mhm.
is super key. It's way beyond sort of the glitter of how self-care is presented in today's world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Networking. I mean, we talk about networking here until we're blue in the face. From an entrepreneurial perspective, networking is key. There's synergies, there's collaborations that
Mhm.
can help lead to success. But you're
Mhm.
talking about this community, this network, um, uh, and so I guess similarly, from a resilience perspective, um, a network helps. So how do I create this network? I'm stressed and I want to become resilient to cope with this stuff. I can't make this stuff go away because I got to do it in order to make my business successful, right? So I want to get resilient, get a little bit stronger. How do I create this network or community? You know, It's just me and the business. How do I do it?
I think community building is difficult. I would say, I'm going to be honest. Is sometimes as adults we come to places where we think that we formed all our connections that will ever exist, and stepping outside of our comfort zone and being the person to say, "Hi, I'm Dayla. I'm the owner of Teleconnect," can be difficult, right? And so that's why I think platforms like BEDC, also the Ignite program, are excellent spaces where you have these hubs, these containers, where you're meeting like minded folks. And they kind of take the awkwardness away by putting you in the tank with other people who are also big dreamers, big problem solvers, have these things that they want to see manifested into our physical world. And so it really takes away it helps with the ice breaking, essentially. And I would encourage anyone on this call that is, obviously, if they're on this call, they are in some way connected to BDC, but then also look at the other resources that exist online. I think a real strength of social media, even though it can be tricky with artificial connection, but there are lots of business coaches that I see, also fantastic business coaches who have that balance of ensuring that your wellness is being worked on while being able to meet your business objectives. And these folks sometimes also have connections to other people that you can be put in the rooms with. But the first step, I would definitely say, is get comfortable with putting yourself out there. You have to be aware of the strength of connection. And we're talking about resiliency, right? So there's research that talks about how we become stronger when we're connected to others, when we are in community with others, when our brains are co-regulating together. And it's extremely validating to be in a circle full of people that also are big dreamers as well, because not everyone in your personal life is going to get that you want to do entrepreneurship in an economy like Bermuda. So you have to be put in places with people that get it and are going to validate that experience that you're journeying on.
And the other aspect of that as well is that you're struggling and fighting against fear, right? And particularly for men, especially, in terms of being or allowing themselves to be vulnerable, that's something that's very, very difficult, and that's a barrier that has to be approached. But also, at some point, you have to fight against those ideologies or those internal self-talking that tells you that you can do it. And the only way to overcome that is similar to what Dayla was saying, is that you have to continually put yourself in situations where you're challenged and step outside of your comfort zone. And it doesn't have to be all the way. It could just be 1 foot. It could be, a goal for today is to have a conversation with one person that you don't know and just introduce yourself or find out something about them. And it's those succession of steps that help to get you a lot closer to your goal.
I agree. And
And I thank you. All right, bye.
to piggyback on both of what you both have said, is definitely shifting your mindset. So most of us, not all of us, but most of us, we have a I got this mindset or a superhero mindset. So, I should be able to cope, I should be able to manage, I need to have it together. Um, we it's this idea that I should be able to manage. I don't need to essentially ask for help. So it's shifting that mindset from I need to have it together to make sure you are help seeking. And I know that was something for me that was really huge. I knew nothing about entrepreneurship, but I felt like I should have had it together. Like I should just know these things. So in terms of building that community, I had to change my mindset first because I don't know everything. And I had to step out of that comfort zone and shift to be able to engage with the community, or I would have never done it.
I see. We welcome Dr. Annabel Fountain. We were missing
Hi,
you.
I
We were
was an
actually
attendee for a while. I'm now actually on the right page.
right.
Hi,
Well, you made it. You made it. We
thanks
were
for
missing
having
you.
me.
Yeah. So, guys, this is Dr. Annabel Fountain. Fountain Health takes a holistic approach to treating medical disorders. They're professionals their professionals offer a comprehensive lifestyle strategy covering prevention, diagnosis, management, and education of chronic diseases. All medical needs are met in one location. So Dr. Fountain is on the medical side of things. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I
Again,
appreciate it.
yes, of course, we're lucky to have you. So um, uh, jump in whenever you can. It's a free fall.
I'm catching
So
up. I'm catching up to
yes,
get
yes. So
into the
I'm gonna
groove.
yes. So I heard about the superhero mindset, and then I heard about Dr. Adrienne, you were talking about the superhero mindset, and Fitz, you were talking about what I would call what is it called? I did some research before this. Um,
Imposter
imposter
syndrome.
syndrome. Yes, the imposter
Yeah,
syndrome.
yeah.
And so, guys, if you don't know the imposter syndrome, I do because I just looked that up online, is a behavioral health phenomena described as self-doubt of intellect, skills, or accomplishments among high-achieving individuals. As a entrepreneur, I want to say we're all high achieving. We have a high standard for ourselves, but I can tell you, as an entrepreneur myself, been so all my life. Yeah, I get large doses of imposter syndrome, believe it or not. So
We all
what
do.
what what do I do? What do I do?
Shall I say something on that? I
Yes.
think it's
Sure,
quite
you can go
unusual.
ahead.
It's quite unusual for men to have imposter syndrome. It's true. No, it's nice to hear that, because it's women who don't ask for the pay rises, who don't they don't charge enough for their services. That's one of the biggest challenges for me, actually, is a huge amount of guilt, because I worked for the hospital for 7 years, where people didn't have to pay to see me, even though their insurance was paying 2 or 3 times what they pay now. In fact, multiples of that, what some of the insurances pay now. When I left the hospital and had to put a price on my expertise and my time, it was very, very hard to get that level right, and I didn't get it right. I tried to make it okay for people, and that wasn't okay for me. So that's a big issue, actually. You can be very, very confident in your ability, but actually knowing, like, putting a dollar sign in front of your name or your service is very, very challenging. And that's something that Ignite helped a lot with, like that discussion that Ignite does for you. And then actually for healthcare, you might want to have a look, Dr. Berkeley, because the Bermuda Health Council actually has a spreadsheet of the fair reimbursement for each CPT code. And so since last year, I actually have started billing the fair reimbursement, because the Health Council is trying to save the system money. So they are not being generous. They're saying this is fair. And I was way below. I would have been billing $160,000 more per year if I had used their recommendations, but nobody told me. And so that is something else that I think is really, really important when you're talking about community of entrepreneurs, etc. It's so amazing. The BEDC is there, and that Ignite is there, and you have this advice now. Because when I started, I came to BEDC. But there's so much more happening now. But if the BDAC doesn't know about this spreadsheet on the Bermuda Health Council website, they couldn't tell me about it, right? So 6 years of under charging. I think this stuff is really, really important, because it's so stressful just doing all the things yourself. And then if the numbers don't add up, that is a whole nother level of stress. So anyway, that's my little bit on imposter syndrome. I've been here and I've been doing my practice. I will count it as this is my 14th year. So I came home in 2010. So 7 years at the hospital, and this is my seventh year in private practice. And it's interesting, it does really build your confidence actually when I'm still really busy. I still have a waiting list. There's 2 other endocrinologists now. I'm still really busy. So
Awesome. Fitz, were you going to take a stab at that?
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Dr. Fountain. Really appreciate that.
Real quick, before you dive in, I just want to let the audience know. Please do put some questions in the chat, or I think there's a little question mark on your screen. If you have any questions for anybody, or you just want to throw something out, please do so. Sorry, Fitz, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I appreciate that, Dante. So basically, thank you, Dr. Fountain, again. When it comes to imposter syndrome, it's actually for me something that I've struggled with most of my life. It's that inner voice that's constantly telling me that I'm not good enough, which leads to the negative self-talk. And it actually comes from a place of fear, right? And so for me, ultimately, I began to challenge that, like, what evidence is presented that shows me that I'm not capable of doing this or I'm unable to do that. I'll speak with other people. So my support network, which everyone has discussed as well, who are giving you confidence and helping you to lift your ego and inflate you in other ways that sometimes is actually needed. But ultimately, again, to Dr. Fountain's point, when I started this practice, I had this idea when I was in college, and I didn't start it for so many years afterwards, primarily because of that inner voice. I mean, I had to do all the examinations just like everyone else. I had to get certified just like everyone else. But for some reason, I didn't think that the idea that I had was worthy. And secondly, I didn't think that I was capable of being able to do it. But sometimes you have to take that leap of faith. And in the process of going through that process, you work it out. And Dr. Fountain, I think you definitely alluded to that as well, that, once you begin putting one foot in front of the other, you eventually get to that destination. And when you get there, if you realize that that's not where you want to be, then you ask yourself that question: what do I need to help me to get closer to where I need to be? And that's how you begin to take the necessary steps to get there. But I agree, places like Ignite can help. Surrounding yourself with other entrepreneurs and people who, like you, feel as if they're on an island. Because being an entrepreneur actually feels like that. It feels like you're isolated and you're going through this all alone.
And I
Agreed.
can tell
another
that
thing,
you.
sorry,
Sorry,
go
go
on.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I was going to say, I definitely agree. I want to piggyback because I know I am the first one to get on Google after I said something to somebody. And I'm like, let me just double check that I am correct. That I get on Google and I'm like, what did I say about dementia and this medication? I'm like, okay, I was right. And it definitely comes from a place of fear, and helping me through that, similar to what Fitzgerald said, is building that confidence and remembering that whatever you decide to be an entrepreneur in, you are the expert of that field. Consider yourself an expert. You grow in that confidence when you feel like, I know what I'm doing. I know my stuff. I know this area. I know this fabric if I'm doing clothing. I know this soap if I'm selling soap. I know my stuff. The more you say it, the more your brain's going to believe it. So the more I remind myself that I know my stuff. I went to school forever. This was my area. I've worked with the best people, yada yada. That helps the imposter syndrome to quiet. It may never go away, but it helps to quiet it and put it in its place. So I just wanted to add that as well. You know
If
your
I
stuff.
if I can also jump in with on what everyone said, I would. The fact that you're here on this webinar with BEDC means that you have helped to problem solve or solve a problem that exists for people. And there's this saying where this rap line that says, people understand the cost of everything but the value of nothing. So you have to be very versed and researched and backed on the problem that you're solving and understand the value that you're bringing to the market. All of us here on this call were clinicians or healthcare providers. There are a lot of people on this island who walk around with problems that need to be worked through by people who are compassionate and have the appropriate research and knowledge base and the skill to get it solved. And so, the people that are on this call, whatever your discipline is, be confident enough to know that the problem that you have agreed to solve is worth being compensated for in a way, not just in monetary value, but also time and energy spent as well. So I just want to add that piece in there. And then the last thing I'll say is that entrepreneurship, and I'm in the very early stages of my entrepreneurship journey, and I've already seen how it has asked me to come closer to myself in understanding what my limits are, the negative self talk, the shame that you experience about asking to be compensated for something or requiring someone time and energy. So, number one, you've identified the problem that needs to be solved, and there's a value in that. Number two, get comfortable with challenging the inner critic, like Mr. Williams said, like Dr. Berkeley, like Dr. Fontaine, all acknowledge. Get comfortable with the inner voice that we all have, and get comfortable with challenging it, because sometimes we have to look for the evidence. It's not always accurate. Not always accurate.
I mean, and if I could chime in, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. You guys know that. I'm a director. But
You're
in any
definitely a
rate,
therapist.
I think so, right? I think so, but because I do business advice, and people come on the call stressed and they leave, with direction. They leave with direction. And what I was going to say was that, I found as an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur in my life, that as I increase my entrepreneurial skill set and my mindset, my stress level reduced. So as I matured as an entrepreneur and I learned and I went, I didn't go to BEDC in my younger days. I should have. I didn't know they were rolling like that. But in any rate, as I grew, my stress level it reduces. Even now, a lot of my fear, say in one of my businesses is, financial. How something happens at the plant, how are we going to pay for that? Oh my gosh, it's like a quick wave. Oh no, that's not part of the plan. And what helps me is going to, this is going to sound weird, going to my spreadsheet, my forecast, my projection, looking at how we're going to, oh, okay, so we're going to amortize that over about 3 months and blah blah blah. Okay, okay, 4 months, we're fine, it's good, I'm calm. And so what I'm saying is, as you increase your entrepreneurship skill, like understanding financials, understanding human resource, understanding your operations, then you would reduce some of that stress. And you can be resilient because these things come and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I'll just go to the spreadsheet and see how we're going to get through. So that's my little piece. Yes, Dr. Fountain.
So I pay people to do the stuff I'm not good at.
And you can do that too.
Yeah, because I am a really good doctor. And if I look at spreadsheets, I start feeling nauseous. I do use them. I did a secretarial course last century, and there was Excel on the secretarial course, and so I do know how to use Excel, but it's not going to help me to struggle through it, and because any of that time is not reimbursed, and it is not doing what I'm good at. And what I'm good at is helping people to be better, and that's where the reward comes, right? So the financial reward is something else. But if I'm buried under the things that I'm not good at, then I'm not doing the bit that I'm here for. So that I have an accountant and somebody
But
else does the billing.
those financial statements. You
Oh,
know how to
yes.
read those financial statements. You know how to look.
Oh,
You know the
no.
questions.
Yes.
You know the
Yes.
questions to ask. We've got a whole host of our entrepreneurs that financial literacy is just not. I put the money in the bank, and then I take it out, type deal. So yes, if you can afford an accountant, great, great, great. But at least know how to read financials and not only read them, ascertain what they're saying. What they're saying is key. But yeah, I agree. Get the experts to do what they do best, and you do what you do best.
Honestly, I don't think your success, right? Of course, you need good accounting, but your success, if you're depleting what you're good at and your opportunities for connection and spending time with the people or building your business or creating ideas, if you are not able to do that because you're doing something else, it's not worth it. It is not worth it. You're losing money. Even if it breaks even, it's worth spending that money to get an expert to do that, even to just get you set up and so that it rolls and you understand how to use it. I had my accountant before I opened my business.
That's a good segue into my next question. You guys are all entrepreneurs. So what are what's your experience with being resilient? Did you guys go through these valleys? And yes, you have the tools, but does it hit differently when it's it's your stress? It's probably easier. It's easy to give the advice. So how did you handle it? And I mean, what was the experience? Can you give an example? And how did you handle it?
So I can chime in on this. Obviously, as many of you know, Mask is the only male service center you can say in Bermuda. And so I was told no, and I was rejected so many times. And um, it can get to the point where you begin to kind of doubt yourself, or rather, I'll use I statements. It got to the point where I began to doubt myself and whether or not it was worth continually fighting this uphill battle. Dante, you're aware of some of the challenges that I encountered, and I would say that I did it all wrong. I would. Um, if I had to do it all over again, I saved myself some of the stress by seeking, guidance, by maybe getting a business coach, by maybe going to Ignite at the beginning of the business rather than, once the business had started. However, in all of that, I learned. I learned. And so it helped me to kind of get my practice to where it is right now. And we're growing and we continue to thrive. But sometimes you have to walk through the fire to get to the other side. And it tested me. It tested me from the standpoint that I wondered if this was something that I really wanted to do. Even though I had the vision and I believed in it, but going through the fire allowed me to recognize just how passionate I was about seeing this through. And it gave me the resilience, yes, but it also gave me the know how or the baseline rather, to be able to push through anything that comes my way. Because getting the business off the ground, in my opinion, for me, was the most difficult part of it. Now that it's here, all I have to do is just continue to take the steps, acknowledge that there are areas of the business that I don't know, I don't understand, and seek guidance and assistance and support in those particular areas, which is exactly what I've done. So I'm certain that each of us have had those types of experience. And I expect that, as I continue to grow the practice, I'll encounter some more and I'll just deal with that when I get there.
Thank you, Vince.
For me, I always say entrepreneurship was not a choice for me. Private practice was not what I wanted. The career, my experience that I have, I should have always been at a hospital, my opinion. That was kind of my training. So I always say it wasn't a choice. I kind of had no choice into coming into entrepreneurship. So for me, it was actually quite difficult. I was angry. I had left a situation. COVID had just started. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur, but I also needed to buy milk. So I didn't really have a choice. And at the beginning, it was really, really hard. It was hard overcoming imposter syndrome. So, who do I think I am? Coming into a space where there are people who are way more qualified, who are 20, 30 plus years than me, and I'm speaking as a quote unquote expert despite my experience that I can point to. I'm just, to be honest, I'm a little black girl. So I had to overcome that. I had to overcome not paying myself. I had to overcome putting myself out there, which again, I like to sort of blend into the background. The idea of having to put my face out there was nerve wracking. It still is nerve wracking, to be fair, but I'm a lot more comfortable. It felt it. I always feel like some people they choose the dream. Fitz, you said this was always something that you wanted to do. For me, I was like, absolutely not. I'm not doing this. In fact, I remember in school there was a private practice class, and I was like, I'm not going because I don't need to go. And so I had to overcome a lot of personal hardships out of SINU, which required me to go to therapy. It required me to lean on my parents at the time, my friends, even though some of my friends couldn't fully understand, and it's easy for people to be like, you got this, keep going. But sometimes I didn't need to hear you got this, keep going, because the reality is I'm struggling and this is really hard. Like, I'm taking a risk on myself and I don't know if it's going to work. Um, so it was really challenging. And like I said, so I'm segue a little bit. We talk about, I'm not going to use delusional in a clinical sense. I'm going to use it, how we say it socially. Being delusional sometimes not good, but I think you need to be a smidge of delusional when it comes to your entrepreneurship journey. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe this is what I want and this is what I'm going to get and this is what it's going to look like. It doesn't matter if no one's done it before. It doesn't matter if I'm the first one. Doesn't matter if I'm young, if I'm old. It just doesn't matter. This is what I want for myself. And I genuinely had to believe that, and that is how I got to where I am now. You do have to be a little bit delusional in a good way, in a non-clinical way, but it's an ongoing journey. You're gonna hit highs where you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and then you're gonna have lows where it feels like, what the heck have I done here? But that's the journey in itself. But as long as you have support systems in place to help you go through those peaks and valleys, you will be okay.
Dana, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I really, really, really resonate with what Dr. Adrienne just said. I did not come into this space or working with people as a mental health counselor thinking that I would run my practice, provide workshops, do organizational consultancy. There's I always thought that this degree, this time that I've spent would be used helping someone else in someone else's agency in a hospital setting, which is where I still work, not working on my own thing. And so entrepreneurship kind of found me in a way. My frustrations, through frustrations with wanting to see a better healthcare system, wanting to see better treatment outcomes for people, wanting to see the systems that we exist in change because they are fundamentally flawed, even for people on an entrepreneurship journey. And so frustration really led me to this thing called entrepreneurship, and also redefining what freedom of my time and my skill set and my ability to change things, not reinvent the wheel, but add to the conversation. And all these things are how I even entertain the idea of entrepreneurship. And I would cringe when someone would say, "Oh, you're running a business." No, it's just a platform. I'm just giving mental health tips, or I'm a content creator. No, babes, this is what it is, right? And so I leaned into that, and here we are. And it's the most exciting and scariest thing that I've done, even taking it even a step further. And so I really would encourage folks on this call to remember your why and also your values and what your core self is actually saying about the purpose and the mission that you're here to actually carry out, and where that's going to land you. If that's not in an entrepreneurship space and it's a 9 to 5 and you're helping with someone else's organization or platform, that's okay. But if you know within yourself that I have outgrown what it means to be in the workspace or what I thought my skill set required, then by all means look at how you can add to your own dream and your own space and your own platform. But I think that it really does require you to be very clear on, very honest with yourself about your own needs, your own values, and what it actually means to be in the discipline or the space that you belong to. Because is entrepreneurship for everybody? I actually don't think so. But I do believe that those who are brave enough to dream different, to want to see things different, to want to see change in this very small island that we all exist in, the island that we all love, then by all means, go for it. Find your community, get clear on who you are and what you want and how you're going to manifest that thing, how you're going to build it into the physical realm, and go for it. But don't do it alone. And we're not here to do things alone. And I think by connecting with others, you can also save yourself a lot of the headache and the frustration that comes when you set out to do it on your ones. I don't believe that we're meant to do things alone. I really, really appreciate what Dr. Fontaine talked about with having an accountant out the gates, because I am new to this again. I don't understand the commercial side of it fully. And I was not born into a family of entrepreneurs either. All of my folks made great ways of living, working in organizations and spaces that provided them security. So this is a new space for me. This is completely a new venture. Ask for help and understand that it's going to aid you more along your journey.
I would really love to say it's great to hear from Dr. Adrienne about her never wanting to be an entrepreneur, because that is me. Like I just want to be a doctor, and so that is the other reason why I sort of build my team around me so that I can do that. And that's really challenging too, because I grew up. I say I grew up, but I'm Bermudian, but I trained in the UK. And I grew up with the NHS, and I grew up with multidisciplinary teams. And to come out on my own, then trying to find the team, like the expertise. So Bermuda's very, very small, and getting people together, there's a lot of challenges, right? So sometimes it's hard to get the right person because they're not available. The Bermuda doesn't have that resource. Sometimes it's hard because you're doing something that somebody else is doing, right? Like you're coming in and you're competing with other services that are there. So sometimes asking for help is challenging as well, because your ideas, your intellectual property, your passion, your energy, you do need to keep it for yourself. I want to share it. I like, if someone comes to me and they're talking about starting a business and that kind of thing, I'm like, here you go. Here's all the things. But I have been burned very badly by people who I thought were going to be team members that actually went and did my thing for themselves. So I think that's a learning process. I wanted to say a little bit about the resilience. We've got 2 men and 2 very young women, and then you've got the girl who yesterday realized that next year she's going to be 50. Yesterday I realized that, and I said it out loud for the first time, and so that's quite scary. So in this transition over the last 7 years, I have been going through perimenopause and menopause. And women have something totally different to tackle from the age of about 11 to the age of about 50, which is how every day of the month is different, as their hormones can really, really challenge your ability to cope with things, because every day is different. And so that is something that I think I had no idea about, and I'm a hormone specialist. Okay. Wasn't a lot of training, there was not a lot of research. Anyway, so now I'm just making sure that I'm very, very, very good at that because I need it. And there's so many women, especially this kind of age, like going into late 30s, early 40s. I get a referral every day, and they're really, really, I mean, top functioning, amazing people who just don't feel the same, and they're not coping the same. And that happened to me. And so I think that is another thing to take into account when you're realizing, like, are you overwhelmed? Why are you overwhelmed? If something was okay before, but now it's not okay, what is going on? Like, sometimes when you're excellent, like we're all in this room, we're excellent, right? We've always done our best. We've got good grades. We've got the job. We've worked really hard. We've got good results. If you're struggling and things that used to be easy just aren't that easy, or you're overwhelmed when it wasn't like that before, I mean, think about what else could be going on. In your bigger health, it's because it's all mixed, right? It's overlapping. Mental and physical health, they're not separate things, they're together, and we have to look after them together.
Thank you so much, Fountain, because you did this before. I think you segued me into the next question. Thank you. Keep on doing it. Actually, the time is running out. But this is the last question, and I'm trying to figure out how to ask it. Do I have the right words? How do you know when to see a professional like you guys? I mean, we got you here. How do you know, or when should one um, pick up the phone and call one of you and set up an appointment?
So that's a good question, Dante, and I personally receive that question all the time. Um, I I personally think that people shouldn't wait. I believe that prevention is better than cure, right? That's my ideology, and so it's something that each of us should. I've been a client. I wanted to know what it was like to be on the other side, so I've been a client exactly, and it's important to know because once you've been a client, then it helps to tailor you in terms of being a clinician, in my opinion, a lot better. All right. I knew what it felt like to be treated wrongly or to be felt as if I was being blamed by my clinician. And so I knew I did not want to offer that. But to your point, I do believe that prevention is better than cure. And so it's similar to, people who go to their doctor, they have annual checkups, or someone who takes the car in to be serviced. It happens what, twice a year. The car doesn't have to be breaking down before you take it in. You take it in so it does not break down. Well, as people, as humans, we are the same way. We run our body. It is an engine, and we have to be mindful of the fuel that we're putting into it. That could be food, it could be toxic behavior, it could be toxic mindsets, etc. So that's just where I'm coming from, and I'm certain I don't want to take up too much because I know others want to chime in.
Thank you, Fitz.
I definitely agree. I think everyone does is we kind of wait until we've hit the wall, so we can't concentrate, we're low in mood, we can't sleep, we're snappy, we're irritable. We That is our body and brain's way of communicating that we've already passed the threshold. So prevention definitely is. You don't need a problem to come and seek support, which is I think a lot of misconceptions that we have. And I love those statistics, but as entrepreneurs, we're 50% more likely to have a mental health condition. We're 2 times more likely to have anxiety and depression, 10 times more likely to get bipolar, 2 times more likely to get psychiatric hospitalization, 6 times more likely for ADHD. Like, we naturally are walking mental health red flags. So we need to genuinely lean on support or whatever it is that gives us peace and genuinely makes us happy and helps us to just relieve stressors. We have to do that more than the next person.
Yeah, those statistics that you're giving are so brilliant because um, those there's the yin and the yang. So ADHD is a superpower because it means you can multitask and you can catch balls at the same time. And I was diagnosed in 2020 with ADHD. I didn't know I had it before that, and God knows. So and then you have all your coping mechanisms like OCD that I have, which makes me a really good endocrinologist because I check everything. But yeah, it does create anxiety. And I think it's that thing where you're actually realizing that the things that made you feel a bit weird or etc. actually are helping you to be better at what you do as well. Like, that's another thing to remember, is that someone who's anxious, yeah, you don't want it to undermine everything about you, but if you're anxious, you're actually going to be really conscientious as a caregiver, or a provider. And I don't think that anxiety is, I mean, everything serves a purpose too, right? So these feelings and emotions and hormones and the way that we are built and how we react, they've all developed either in the big evolutionary picture or in ourselves since we were born. There are these purposes to the responses that we have. So I think learning that is really, really important. If you wouldn't necessarily feel like you needed to see a therapist or a counselor or a psychologist, then maybe having a coach is a good idea. I actually have recently got connected with Jessica Lightbourne. I've referred people to her before, but she's helping me. And I've had therapy before. There's a time for different things, but the coaching is interesting. That's talk about getting you on track. It's somebody's just bouncing ideas off somebody, right? Where you get the feedback, and even just hearing it said out loud, just saying something out loud goes, now that's not going to work, right?
I would just add to that I'm a clinician who has had a clinician, therapist who has had a therapist, and I agree with prevention is better than cure. I agree with not waiting to the last minute because I know that sometimes as humans we do tend to say I'm okay, I can go a bit further, and that was me. Literally did not become a client until I had burnt my hands. I was withered and burnt out, right? We don't have to wait to that end. We don't have to feel the shame or guilt of wanting to ask for a lifeline or support. And these things can literally be thought of as resources, just things that we have in our entrepreneurship toolbox. I've talked to people who think of their therapist as something that's going to be around for the rest of their days. I check in and out. I'm never leaving my therapist. The same way that we need a physician, a GP, or any other specialist when it comes to our health. The last thing that I would say is, like Dr. Fontaine kind of hinted towards, it's if you're not if you're noticing that you're not functioning at a in a space or at a rate that you normally would, if you are taking care of your health, if you're moving your body, your nutrition is okay, your sleep is fine, and you still have this internal feeling that is higher than anxiety, or it's keeping you real flat, if there's this lurking dread about what you have to do as someone who is running your own ship, you know, speak to somebody, reach out. If again a therapist isn't something that you're looking for, I mentioned it, Dr. Fontaine just mentioned it again, coaching is something that I find a lot of people are becoming more and more comfortable with, but also be aware of the differences between a clinician and a coach as well, because sometimes the issues may be they may need a deeper lens, another lens than what a coach, which is fantastic, will actually provide. So I think those things can be talked about in community as well. Community has kind of been a theme word that we've hinted towards in this discussion. But again, do not be afraid to ask for help. And it's going to take you a lot farther in this journey than not asking for it.
Outstanding. Look, we've come to the end. And I just want to thank all four of you. Yeah, I think it's been an amazing session. We're going to record this and blast it out, of course. But we're going to also send all the attendees your contact details and a sort of a little blurb of what you do. Because I'm sure some of them would want to reach out and say hello and use your services. So, in any rate, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's always a pleasure to see you guys. Lots of love and goodbye.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thanks to my colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one. Take care now.
Bye.